Welcome to How to Be a Humane Leader Without Losing Your Job. We're here to chat about humane leadership in a way that's real and relatable, tackling work-life challenges and offering practical advice to navigate tough decisions. Whether you're leading a team or navigating your own career, we've got you covered. I'm Chris Olerking, a Fortune 100 IT leader, and with me is Roberto Torres, a startup engineering leader. We'll dive into real world stuff, share experiences, and offer guidance on leading with compassion while keeping your career on track. Today, we'll discuss what has changed in humane leadership in 100 episodes. Oh my God, 100 episodes. So much has changed. We must have learned so much just from our discussions in 100 episodes, right?
Yeah, indeed. First of all, congrats, man, because we have reached those 100 episodes, and I trust that everybody who has heard at least one of our episodes has learned something, has used that knowledge until they have found something valuable in themselves and their team. So, first of all, congrats.
You too, you too. And I want to thank UOP. I'm wearing my UOP shirt. Was my first corporate job and the place that taught me a lot of the wisdom that I share on the channel. I'm so proud of UOP. And I'll tell you, even in 100 episodes, my ideas around humane leadership have adjusted. They're not radically different, but I think one of the core principles we talked about in several different episodes is that, a humane leader is willing to change their mind about certain things. They're willing to continue to learn and apply new practices in what they're doing. And, my background was from large corporations and how they functioned. Starting, UOP was about $1 billion company with 4,000 employees when I started. And then I worked at that other company that was about a $40 billion company with 100,000 plus employees. And I'll tell you, you learn a lot, but I've learned so much from you, in your startups. And so the thing about humane leadership, and I think that what has changed in 100 episodes, the biggest point of view for me is that you have to understand exactly the dynamics that are going on in your environment, because it could be at a big corporation or a gigantic corporation or a startup. And the exact same recipe does not necessarily bake you the cake. You want to be a humane leader. That's the overall umbrella. You and I want to be humane leaders. We want to help others be humane leaders. But there's got to be enough insight into the exact situation you're in to understand how to apply those principles to be the most effective. Because let's use a big corporation example, right? I want to be very flexible with you and reward you for your hard work. But our big corporation might have very strict, you must be in the office rules. So how do I give you some extra time off when, let's say, they also have a very strict vacation rule? Big corporations have things like that. So how do I reward you in a humane way within the corporate structure? And so we've talked about some of these dynamics with small businesses and big businesses, and sometimes that humane leader maybe has to bend some rules. And I'll admit, now that I can't get in trouble for it, I certainly bent the rules for my employees on occasion to reward them, because I felt the company wasn't acknowledging them as much as they should, and I wanted to be humane about it and would give them some extra time off back when vacation time was very strict and things like that. So it's 100 episodes. I've learned things.
Well, first of all, let me tell you, thank you very much. I'm touched by your words. I'm glad that you have learned something from me. To me, the thing is, I have learned a lot from you, actually, a lot. And not related maybe to the corporate world, but as a human leader. Even though I have been a human leader for many years, I have learned a lot from you. I have learned that first of all, you're an amazing co-host of this podcast. Second, I learned a lot from you, from the human leadership style And you amaze me from many different aspects every time we speak during these episodes and during excuse me, while we're outside with your messages, with your videos, etc. And I think of you as my humane leader, actually. And when I have some doubt about something, I talk with you and you have guided me. And during this podcast as well, because there are certain things I was so adamant about certain stuff, and then suddenly you showed me the other way, and I said, yes, I was wrong, and what Chris has told me has totally sense. So yes, man, thank you very much. And this podcast wouldn't be as it is today if you haven't said yes when I reached for help in the garden peer community, looking for a cool pilot, let's say, because I saw the world that it isn't as it should be, that we had to be more humane rather than just numbers, 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 numbers. So I'm glad, really, really glad that you are my co-host during this. And this achievement is from both of us. Thank you.
Absolutely is. And you know, that Gartner peer group was kind of the keystone, right? It put us in a situation where we can interact with people. And there's a humane leadership tip for you right there. Be open to new ideas that you haven't done before. So initially, you know, this Gartner peer group reached out and said, hey, you know, you're an executive, we'd be interested in you in participating in this forum. I want to say it was probably 5 years ago now, maybe in 2018. It was a long time ago. And it was very small when it was starting out. But I'd be willing to try something new. And then you reached out and said, hey, you know, I want to talk about humane leadership. And I was like, well, you know, I'm a busy guy, but you know, it might be fun to talk to somebody from a different country with different perspectives to broaden my viewpoint on things. And I think that's another sign of humane leadership, is that, you know, broaden your viewpoint, expose yourself to other cultures, other countries, etc., because where you're at, you form your ideas based on exactly what you personally are experiencing. And if you're only experiencing gigantic corporation, you're going to think like everybody else, every other leader there that's just seeing big corporations. And by hearing some of the different ideas that work in startups and larger than startups and so on, and how they do things, could help you think about, well, what might I try to help manage my team in a medium-sized company? Some of the things in big, huge corporations won't work, right? You know, we have support teams that are awake 24 hours a day because we have locations all in every time zone. Well, in a medium-sized company that only operates in one country, that's not a good option, right? So sometimes there are going to be some physical limitations, but you know, we've talked about different ways that we manage our teams and deal with, you know, using the example, you know, of support. Well, in a medium-sized company, maybe you got to rotate that time off, right? To allow you to have weekend coverage. You can't always make the same person be on call every single weekend. Otherwise, they'll burn out and they'll be gone. That's not very humane.
Yeah.
You know, so that was, you know, I think that kind of perspective, our big corporation, multi-time zones, et cetera, your experience with some other countries, sometimes local time zones, sometimes across multiple time zones, language barriers, all these things help us become more humane leaders because we're sharing experiences that no one leader could have every working experience. And so sometimes some of the things that you've had, I never had, and I've learned from that, and vice versa. I think that's what you're getting at, where I've been able to, because I'm so much older than you, I have a few more years of experience, and you know, and I can share some of the good things and bad things that, you know, I've experienced in leadership. And by sharing those with someone you trust is how I think we develop as humane leaders, right? It's finding somebody you can trust and have an open discussion and maybe even admit that I think I'm doing it wrong. Hey, Roberto, I'm doing this wrong. What do you think? And Roberto's got to feel comfortable enough to say, yeah, Chris, that ain't going to work. And that maybe that you don't be so inhumane to say that my idea was dumb, but you are a humane leader and say, yeah, I don't think that will work, but why don't you try this, or what do you think about this? And, we trust each other to have those discussions without being called, an idiot or stupid or any other bad thing, right? The humane leadership side of us is, let's have a discussion. We'll share our opinions, because that's what it is. Leadership is about opinions. There's only a few things in leadership that are right or wrong, like discrimination or hate. And we come to some really good conclusions. And I hope the listeners have found some insights that they've been able to apply. I think a few people have reached out to you and said, that our conversations have helped them with finding jobs or dealing with a difficult situation at work. So I feel good about 100 episodes.
Well, totally agree. And I'm glad that you have these thoughts about us, about me, about the whole project that we've been delving on and everything. I think that, first of all, let me tell you, when I began reading all your answers back in Garden with Peer Community, I learned a lot from you. You were among the few people that I love the most within their answers at that community. And when you answered to my request and you say, yes, I was thrilled, and I didn't know what was going to happen until not today, until a few episodes, because I said, my God, this guy has the same mindset and has more knowledge and more of everything what he has written by talking to me. So I was learning a lot. And let me tell you something. There are certain events in my life while we have been recording this podcast that I have reheard that episode because I wanted to not learn, but I wanted to hear from you from that episode towards my life. When I was out of a job a couple of months ago, when I had problems communicating with my boss, my leader back at that time, I used to hear again what you told me. So I think these episodes aren't one shot only. I think it's recurring as many times as you have these problems. And I think that is good because we are here not to reach maybe 1 million audience listening to our episodes. If we at least help someone who is in distress by giving guidelines, help, etc., I'm cool with that. I'm really, really glad about that. So, man, what can I say about you? And one thing that is really important. You mentioned that you're too old, man. If you were 10 or 20 years above me, I would say, yes, you're in that age bracket, but you're close to me. So, no, you're only 6 years away.
Well, I think as I reflect back and I think about, well, what else has changed in my, back to the subject, right? What has changed in 100 episodes? And I'll tell you, I did learn more about startups than I knew before, so that, it was important for me to understand the reward mechanisms and how you have to work with small teams, really small teams, meaning just a few people. That's a lot different than in a big corporation. And so, I think if you're trying to develop your humane leadership skills and you're not sure where you should go first, I'm not suggesting you absolutely go to a startup, But I do think as I reflect over 100 episodes that I would probably, if I want to be a leader, right? I'm an individual contributor currently. I'm listening to our podcasts. I think I need to find leadership roles in smaller environments that I can control. It doesn't need to be a startup, but I don't think I would advise anybody to go to even a company as big as UOP's. You know, UOP was 4,000 employees across, I think we were in 80 companies at the time, or countries, 80 countries at the time. As a young man, I don't know that I would give myself that advice to go work there today as my first job, because I think I got lucky and had a lot of great mentor bosses that were not bosses. They were humane leaders, and they didn't know it because we hadn't coined the phrase yet. And so I was able to learn a lot and slowly work in bigger and bigger groups, but I don't think that's very common. And so if I was giving a new leader advice, I would probably try and be in a company that allows you to fail a little bit, because humane leaders make mistakes. And so from the beginning, when we first started, I would have told everybody to go work at a company like UOP. Culturally, I think UOP was the best place to be. But I don't know that I would tell people today, based on our 100 episodes, to start at a company with 4,000 people in it. I would probably suggest something more like 1,000 personally for me, because that's big enough that you get some good background in procedures and how a bigger company works, but it's not so big that you won't be allowed to fail. You can make mistakes, and you're much more likely to have a humane leader in that situation and avoid some of the things that we've talked about that you've experienced in some of our episodes, right? Where there's more politics in a smaller company because the brother-in-law is funding the company, right? And somebody's got an absurd amount of power because, you know, their brother-in-law is the one who's funding the money for the whole company. And so it's a different kind of politics that are in a 1,000-person company. So for me, my recommendation for a new leader is to, you know, look at some place that's big enough to have a team with structure so you can learn about doing performance reviews and pay raises, but doing it in a way that's not so biased that it's where one leader has so much power because they're funding the whole thing.
Yeah. And also adding to everything that you say, I think that also is really important for everybody who gets into a company, either a startup, a big company, or a medium, 1,000 people, is to observe what is going on, how my boss or my leader or my human leader acts while everything is cool and everything is not cool, you know, big problems here. Are they different people? Are they switching like Mr. Jekyll and Dr. Hyde? Well, the book. Are they behaving correctly? Are they looking for you to communicate? What are the stresses going on? Are people on burnout or not? Are we delivering? Because with that in mind, people, they will see if they blend faster or there will be setbacks in this culture mix within not only that department, but the company as well. I think one of the things that I have learned over here is to be, even though I was patient, more patient, and to spread my view rather than having blinders, to see the whole perspective. And rather than jumping into conclusions or decisions, to find out everything to make a unbiased decision and more structure about that. So I think I have learned a lot about this, and going into not a startup anymore, but when I go to a bigger company, I will try to spot on all these things to say, yes, I'm in the right place.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point, I think what I've changed in 100 episodes too is that I think I would be much more, like you said, wider vision. I would have wider vision for how people are feeling. Because one of the things, and this was even at UOP to a degree, because we were an engineering company, is that it was more objective focused and not so much about how are you feeling and are you enjoying the work. And I would be, now 100 episodes in, I would be much more observant of, do people seem like they're enjoying their assignments? Is there something I can change to make the assignment more enjoyable so that it's more personally rewarding? And I think when I think about it now and from the conversations you and I have had, that humane aspect is even more important to me than it was 100 episodes ago. Is to really observe, are they really, I know what they're telling me. I'm the boss, even if I am a humane leader. They're telling me, oh yeah, it's great, Chris. Everything's wonderful. Well, that may not be the truth. And especially in a big company, it's never the truth. So I would be much more observant of how happy do they seem, right? Does their desk have pictures of their family and kids, and are they enjoying the environment, or is it Spartan and there's nothing, and they could leave tomorrow and they wouldn't need to take anything with them because there's nothing there? Then they may not be feeling real comfortable if they've not settled in. And I think our discussions have brought that kind of observation. I think I did it a little bit at the end of my career, but not as much as I would have liked. I probably would encourage people to be more aware. Maybe it's the passion that you bring to it, and my engineering background dampens the passion. You've shown and demonstrated passion for how people feel and what are they doing outside of work. And I would definitely try and do that more based on our discussions, 100 discussions we've had.
You feel that way. One thing also is, let me tell you about this 100 episodes. From the first one that we did, there was humbleness, up to this one, we had changed not only our structure, about the things that we have spoken, the things that we are telling, because back then we were like two strangers talking about a subject. If we grab humbleness for the next episode, let's say for instance, we will be adding more because we are more acquainted with ourselves. We have spoken more rather than being two strangers. We're two friends talking about this. And our latest episodes, the last 15 episodes, have been more as we as humane leaders talking to a friend who is in distress, who has these problems. How can we reach with these guys and help them, lead them towards the solution of the problem they are having? I think that is the change that we have. Besides that, we have more gray hair and maybe some pounds, but I won't say about that.
Well, but you brought up something interesting though that I want to pick on, and that is, it evolved over 100 episodes. Mm-hmm. And as humane leaders, we need to realize the relationship we have with the leaders above us, our peers, and our teams that report to us. It takes time. Yeah. And we formed our humane leadership bond, and and episode 200 will also be different than episode 100, right? It takes time, and you have to allow. You can force certain things, right? Like, hey, Roberto, you want to go to lunch? That's a little bit of a force, like starting to build the bond. But realize that you cannot necessarily force it to accelerate. Your humane leadership is, one, developing your personal style, and two, taking the time to let it happen. So you can't just go on first day of work and tell everybody, I'm a humane leader, tell me everything that's going on, what's your problems, I'm here to help. That will not work. but instead, over hopefully not 100 episodes, but over time, give it some time to let your humane leadership come out and evolve to be the right kind of humane leadership for the chemistry and the company that you're working at. Because we both have proclaimed that we're humane leaders, but we do it in different ways. And that's based on our experience, but also based on the situations we were in. And hopefully in the next 100 episodes, as we go through some more experiences, and you'll have some neat insights to share in our next episode, I'm sure. How do we get our humane leadership to evolve, because the place that we're at is different now. It's a different style company. It's a different focus of the company, different people at the company, different culture of the company. How do I bring my humane leadership out there and realize it does take time? Hopefully not 100 episodes, but it will take some time. And don't push it too much. Few lunches, few social discussions, but allow time for humane leadership to take root, because you cannot, if you rush it too much, it will absolutely fail and it won't be humane leadership.
Yeah, indeed. And you nailed it. You nailed it, because this is what we're doing in these 100 episodes. At first, our first episode was plant a seed, and we began with water, sunlight, and taking care of this. And this seed has turned into a tree. And if we don't let nature go and be nurtured and go to mature, go into the mature stuff, the branches will go the wrong way, and rather than being a straightforward tree, a robust who has learned and is growing, it will be like this squiggly tree that we don't want to be. That is what we have been doing, and not only in the episodes, is in the knowledge that we have provided, in the situations that we have faced. I was amazed when you told me that in an episode that you were considered uh, as a negative guy, but you said I was a more realistic guy. I said, oh my God, I was impressed. And I have learned a lot from you. I'm stupid that I'm being redundant, but when I hear you, I see you as, using your word, as my mentor. You are my mentor, man. And when I feel that I'm deviating, I look for you, because you will give me not the answers, the questions that I will answer those questions to be on track. So I think, yes, these 100 episodes has given me a lot, and the further 100 episodes will do the same. And for all our audience, among many countries that are listening to us.
Absolutely. And I think for a final point, you hit the nail on the head. The biggest difference I can think of over the 100 episodes is, I think when I began our discussions of humane leadership, I thought about it as giving advice. And what it's evolved into is developing in the situation, what questions do I want you to answer so that you figure it out yourself? So before, at episode 1, I'd say I was probably primarily giving advice, as were you, I think. And it's evolved more into, and while we don't blatantly phrase it that way, but maybe we should think about that, is it's really about asking the right questions so that you tell me the answer to your problem.
Yes, because everybody, and not everybody, but most of the people knows what to do, but maybe they're afraid to do it, or maybe they require not the assistance, but the verification of someone who has more knowledge of my leader, to say, oh, I was on the right track. This guy has told me, yes, I'm going to apply to do it. So
Yeah, it just
cool.
needed a little pruning, like you said. The tree just needed a little pruning. And our questions, I think
Yeah,
if you
tree.
think about the questions that we ask, it helps guide you to what the humane leadership answer would be. You may have been on the right path, but maybe you're taking a slight detour, and hopefully our humane guidance keeps you on the straight and narrow to humane leadership.
Yeah, it's a little trimming of those leaves and those branches that aren't benefiting yourself. Sorry for the alarm. Okay, got it. Well, man, I think with this we can end this 100 episodes. I will see you for the next 100 as well.
Excellent. Have a
Thank
great
you.
day. Have a good